Did you have quite? Did you come from quite a large family?
No, not at all. I mean, I was the youngest. I was the baby. Still am. Well, as far as my brother and my sister are concerned.
Oh,
Mum and dad have passed away. No, I had two brothers and a sister.
and how did the drinking affect the family?
To be honest, I don't know that it had any effect on my brother and sister. Not that I can recall. I know it was my dad. When my dad had been a Japanese prisoner of war, he was on the Quai Bridge, and he was in Shanghai jail for 3.5 years. And I can remember him saying to me once that the pain of my alcoholism he felt, obviously, and that I brought him more pain than the Japanese ever did.
Right.
So yeah, that stays with me a little bit.
Yeah. Did your parents support you though?
My dad did.
Yeah.
My dad was always there for me. Whenever I called, whatever situation I was in, I always just I could pick up the phone and he used to drive all the way from Wales up to Wolverhampton where I was living. When I was there on my own I was there for 5 years, I think it was. And you would go through that time, when I was professional, and I'd end up in scrapes or, just going through benders. He'd be there. He was never critical.
You'd pick up the phone and it.
Yeah, in an instant.
Yeah.
I mean, some people would say, well, all right, that was love, but he was enabling you to carry on drinking. But I don't see it that way. In the end, of course, during my sobriety, I was there 7 years. My dad saw me getting well for 7 years, and I was able to be there for him. So I was able to repay back some of that love and affection. Before he passed away, and in the end, I ended up organising his funeral and everything, which, in my drinking days, that would never have been possible. That just so the tables turned round. He looked after me, and in the 7 years before his death, when he was deteriorating, he was 86 when he died, but I was able to be there to care for him, and I'm proud of that.
Do you know at what stage your dad knew you probably got an issue with drinking? Did he ever pull you to one side and say anything?
No. Again, I mean, the recognition must have been there because it was his father that was alcoholic. My granddad on my dad's side.
So he had an understanding.
Oh yes. Well, he knew the circumstances. The similarities between my behaviour in drink and his father's behaviour were very similar. Certainly in terms of the aggression, the Jekyll and Hyde type personality, which is common in a lot of alcoholics. In fact, there are chapters written about that, the emergence of a completely different person. And I was no different, that would come out. So my dad saw that in me, and I guess it must have rung bells. It must have rung. But my dad never drank because he didn't want to inflict on us the misery and the suffering that he'd gone through with his father. So I was never brought up. My family never drank.
No.
So I wasn't brought up in an environment where there was aggression or drink. That just didn't exist. But he must have seen. There must have been a resemblance, and in fact, when I got into recovery, I was able to explain to my dad why his father was the way he was. The genetic predisposition, I'd inherited it through my dad.
Yeah.
But my dad never was an alcoholic because it never manifested. He never drank. So without the alcohol, it never manifests. Even if you got it, if you have a genetic predisposition, it doesn't show. In that sense.
I suppose he could see the signs and knew that he saw in his own dad.
Yeah, but ironically, I used to look in the mirror, late into my addiction, and it was my granddad. I used to see staring back, and that was quite weird. But I do honestly believe that coming out of a lot of the scrapes that I did come out of, I think was due to my granddad. I think my granddad, in his his spirit, was looking after me
Yeah.
a lot, and I think that was payback for how he treated my dad, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because when my dad died, my granddad disappeared. His spirit disappeared, and I think he was sort of let my dad deal with me then, sort of thing. When my dad had passed away. So it's funny, really. It's strange that. I do believe that. I genuinely believe my granddad was looking after me because he could see that I had the same illness and condition as he had.
Mm.
Yeah, sure.
You're quite spiritual, Al.
I like to think that I'm moving more in that direction.
Is
Yeah.
there any particular reason why?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, I didn't stop drinking. I couldn't. I tried for years to control it. I went for counselling. I was doing all the usual things. Swapping from beer to lager. Tapering off spirits on the side or anything, just to try and control and limit how much I took. And it was a wasteless battle. I had no more control over my consumption, and yet when you compare, the effort and the determination and the dedication I put into my career and my studies, it seems illogical, really, that I couldn't master my drinking.
Mm.
But I now know, of course, that that's the nature of the illness.
Yeah.
You can be the most successful, the most strong-willed person in the world, but if you have this addiction, willpower, it will never do it. So for me, I surrendered. I gave in. I wrote about it in my autobiography, obviously, but basically, I kind of fell to my knees, and
you were at the end of what made you come to that point? Would you say
I just gave in.
you gave in to it?
I couldn't. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was ruling my life. Everything that I pretty much lost everything that was of value to me. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. I just gave in. I just surrendered. And I didn't. But the following day, I woke up with a hangover. This was my last bender. I'd been shouting at the sky the night before up on a mountain top. I was in a suit. I'd given up another job that I'd only had for a day or two, but I was shouting at the sky, "Why have I got to be like this? Why?" I don't know. Maybe the bearded man in the sky listened, and perhaps he felt sorry for me or something. But the next day, I woke up. There was no different. There was nothing tangibly different about that following hangover to millions that I'd had prior to that. But from that point on, and I can tell you exactly when, it was the 20th of November 2001. The compulsion, the craving for alcohol that had dominated and dictated my living had gone. It had gone, and it's never come back. It's just coming up. It'll be 17 years now, whether it's November. One day at a time. And the thing is, I don't claim to have done it. And that opened my eyes to the possibility, well, if I didn't do it, what did?
Yeah.
And then I began to conceive the possibility that, well, just maybe out there's something far greater than we can conceive,
The spiritual side.
Yeah. And ironically as well, I always had this big void internally, like a big hole. They call it the hole in the soul. I always felt, irrespective of material things, which I'd worked hard for, I'd strived for, like most people, we're on this path of materialism. And I'd had the 3-bedroom detached house with garage, I had my sports car, and I was married. And, all the trappings of material success were there, all right, proportional, I wasn't famous or anything, they weren't Ferraris in the driveway, but nevertheless, compared to millions of people, I was doing really well. I had a good income, I had a good profession, but there was always something missing. There was this void. But once I started, and I remember being in Wolverhampton living, and the Jehovah's Witnesses used to bus loads of followers up to the Molyneux football ground, and once a year they'd have a big convention. And I used to, when I was drunk, I'd be peering from behind my curtain. I was overlooking. And I used to see these people coming out after this convention, and they all seemed to be, I don't know, they just seemed to have a sense of contentment about them. And I was jealous of that. They seemed to have what I didn't have. And I wanted that. I didn't want to be Joe's win. I didn't want any religion, but I wanted the essence of something that just seemed intangible, that I was lacking.
Peace.
Yeah. Well, a connection. A connection to something beyond us. And I'm on that path to finding it. And it's brought me a lot of contentment since.
Just going back to your brothers and sisters, were you particularly close to your brothers and sisters?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I always had a soft spot for my eldest brother. But I mean, he went to South Africa, which was heartbreaking. I'd only been about 6, I expect. He always used to promise me things. He promised me a cowboy outfit for my birthday, and he never delivered. And it used to break my heart, But I put him on a pedestal because he was my eldest. But he'd named me as a baby, so he's coming out to see us now in November. He's in his 70s now. But I loved him to bits, really. My other brother, it was Tom and Jerry. My next brother was 5 years older than me, and we'd always fight. It was just trying to get one up over on the other all the time. And like the fact that he used to study hard and was good academically and learned how to play the piano. I used to make tracksuits and go out, digging in the dirt. So we were at extremes, and we always used to try and get one over on the other. My sister, very quiet. I never really had much to do with my sister. I suppose she was, 10 years older than me, I think. Although now again in recovery, we contact each other a lot, and the relationship I have now with my eldest brother is better than ever I've known in the past.
And during all this time you were drinking, did any one brother or sister notice more than the other, or?
I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware.
But they knew you had a problem.
Yeah, but they were never. I'm assuming. I don't know. Maybe they just saw me as a black sheep. I never really had any contact with my brothers or sister in regards to my. Oh no, that's not true. When I was in Tasmania, I would say to my brother that I would be going out into Hobart. I'd only be 20, 21 then. And I'd say I'd probably be back, midnight or something, and I never used to turn up on time. So apparently, again, I don't recall, so maybe I was experiencing blackout even as young as 20, 21. But he'd since told me that he used to drive out looking for me, and he'd find me, curled up in a hedgerow or something.
Yeah.
And he'd pick me up and bundle me in the car and take me back. So maybe my one brother saw it, did what he could, and then kind of walked away, realizing that I was not going to change.
So he knew at this stage you had an issue.
Yeah, very likely.
Yeah,
very likely. Yeah.
Did any of your family ever talk to you about getting any help at any stage?
No, they just thought it. I think it was just part of who I was, and I don't know. It wasn't. See, in my day, drink away didn't exist. If you look on the internet now, there's reams and reams of stuff out there. But in my day, there wasn't. So anyone with a drinking problem, well, they're a bit weak, or nobody ever associated addiction as being an illness. you know, they were tough times as well, you know, and certainly with my granddad's day, they were tough times. People worked down the mine and they'd go to the pub on a Friday and they'd all get drunk and they'd end up rolling out and fighting, you know. That was just lifestyle. So really, there was not as much awareness about excess then, you know, even in the 70s. You know, to me, I was just having a good time. I was enjoying myself. Yeah, I you know, probably drank too much and I'd end up perhaps, you know, not getting home or perhaps, you know, in a scrape or one sort or another. But that was just tantamount to having a good time.
And did you distance yourself from the family, your family, at any stage?
Yeah, I mean that came. The thing is, what I know, you know, with alcoholics really is that they do orientate themselves to be with people that drink like they do. So my brother never drank. My next brother up. You know, to me, I could never understand how anyone could enjoy life and not drink. You know, so the people I associated with were drinkers, and anyone who wasn't at my level, at my standard, well, you know, you'd move on. So eventually, yeah, I did. I mean, I moved. Again, we do what's called geographicals. So you end up unavoidingly and intentionally creating havoc wherever you are. So at some point, you know, you move away from that. You go somewhere else. And I did a few geographicals. You know, I went up to Stoke-on-Trent. And then after a while, I went from there to Wolverhampton. But of course, I took me and my alcoholism with me wherever I went. So you can never run away from it. It's with you all the time. But distancing myself from family, yeah, of course, because, you know, I didn't want them to see that I was drinking. I didn't want them to know. You know, if the phone rang or, you know, I would hide and things. So,
and was moving geographically part of moving away from your way of keeping out of the way with the problem?
Yeah, because your drinking takes priority, you know. I mean, they say there are 3 stages of, they call it dependence, but you know, hooked, addicted, alcoholic, whatever term you want to use, it's the same thing. But they say there's 3 levels of it, you know, mild, moderate, and severe. I mean, when you get to the severe stage, it takes over. So it controls your life. In fact, everything you do is geared to you carrying on with your drinking. And that doesn't matter what, you know, it doesn't matter what profession you are or anything. You know, you're constantly figuring out how you can carry on with your drinking. If you go to a function, where are you going from there? Will there be alcohol at the end of it? Things like that. So you calculate it all the time, so that you can carry on. I mean, it's a love affair, you know. It's a mistress that takes over.